So it is possible, even in the 2000s, to break away from mortgages and debt and live the life you want to live. Here's my story. Here's how I did it. Action. So if you're interested in setting yourself up uh, to retire comfortably, to retire easily on time, or if you're looking to retire early, um, here's my solution. Here's what I came up with. I'm 55 years old now, and I started this project when I was 34, I believe. But since I started the project at age 34, I've never had a mortgage. So one of the is easily the number one thing that's allowing me to retire, take a reduced pension, and retire a little early. The fact that I've never had a mortgage. Well, not entirely true. I had a mortgage for about 3 years from 2001 until 2004. But since then, I've lived mortgage free and been able to invest on the side, save a lot of money because I wasn't paying a bank. So a few pictures to show what my project looked like originally. And this is currently what my house looks like. So I built this house in a little over 2 years total time, almost entirely by myself. Never paid anybody to do anything on the house. If I didn't know how to do it, I read and studied and figured it out. So drop down to the front of the house so you can see what it looks like from the front. And it 100% is not a luxury home. This is a simple house on a hillside in the woods in southern Ohio. It's 24 by 42 feet long. And in its current configuration, when I built it, it had 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, living room, kitchen, all that stuff. But now I've got the living room, kitchen area completely opened up into one big great room. And I live alone now, so it's a single bedroom with a single bathroom. But this is what it looked like. And all told, like I mentioned, never took out any loans, never borrowed any money on it, no mortgage. Built it in 2.5 years. And I actually itemized every single dollar that I spent when I was building it. And my total cost when I was finished at the time was just a little under $20,000 for the house itself. Now the property that I live on, I've got 4.5 acres, and you can see here an absolutely beautiful view of a hillside. Looking off here and in this direction is facing west, so some beautiful sunsets. But anyway, I was able to build that house, still live in it. Moved in, I think 2008, and I've been living in it ever since. No mortgage, all in on the house itself, about $20,000. Now the land that I have is 4.5 acres. 2 lots divided up almost directly in half, so 4.5 acres total. And I bought the land on land contract. A friend of mine knew somebody who was going through a divorce, wanted to sell the land, so made a deal for a 3-year land contract, which went by pretty quickly. The land itself, again, 4.5 acres, already had 2 septic systems in it, 2 water taps, 2 electrical hookups. There was a single wide trailer here, and I got all that for $21,000. Now, I had read, well, back up a little bit. In 2001, when I moved back home to Ohio, I was stationed at the submarine base in Washington State. And when I separated from the Navy, came back here, not really intended to stay here, but you know how some plans go. They don't always work out the way you want to. Ended up getting a job without really even applying. In fact, I still have that job, teaching middle school currently at a neighboring school district, or local school district. And next thing you know, I found myself looking for a house. Bought a house in the city of Portsmouth, Ohio. Pretty economically depressed town. And ended up buying a house, a small house. I think it was like a 1,200 square foot house for $21,000 in that town. That was in 2001. This is not like a premium city that a lot of people, come to live in specifically, but it's not as bad as what some people make it out to be. Anyway, bought that house for $21,000 and actually did take out a mortgage on it. I think my payment was like $265 for, I don't know, 15 years, whatever. I paid it off in 3 years. It was such a cheap house. I just, as I started working, I just paid it off as fast as I could. But I got robbed while I lived there. First time they got some tools that I'd left out. Second time that happened again. I left some tools on my back porch, kind of tucked out of the way, thinking they would be fine. But there was an alley that went right behind my house. And so people would use the alley and just kind of snoop around, I think. Well, the third time is the one that got me. They stole a motorcycle that I had. At that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to fight this battle anymore. So I made the decision to leave the town. And it's kind of weird how life works out, because as I made the decision to leave town, my friend, told me about this land that was for sale. Really interesting the way the universe just kind of opens up and things fall into place sometimes. But it did for me. So I ended up buying this land, and after I made the decision to leave Portsmouth, I'd by chance, the internet, YouTube, not nearly as popular as they are now, but I'd ran across the story of a guy named Ralph Edwards. So his story is fascinating. So I read his book, and his story, just a very short version, is, man, I think he was in his 50s, but he decided to leave called Normal Society and build a homestead in an incredibly remote area in British Columbia. And his story just fascinated me about how one man just kind of leaves it all behind and hacks out this homestead in the wilderness all by himself, basically with just his hands and hand tools, no big machinery at all. Well, then his ended up having a daughter, and she did the same thing. So I'm thinking, you know what? Why can't I do something like that? So I had this land ready to go, thinking, you know what, I can do that. Well, the problem was I didn't know anything about building. I'd never built anything. Literally, had never built anything other than maybe a dog house and some speaker boxes for my car or something. So anyway, when I moved out here, a friend of mine helped me build like a 12 by 12 shed. Asked him to help me and show me a few things. And that was really all it took. At that point, I started going to the library, checking out books on, construction. Well, then I came across a guy named Rob Roy, and his books just really took my imagination to another level. He had a book on something called cordwood construction. Basically, you're just using firewood to build a house. Then he had a book on timber framing, but not traditional timber framing with mortise and tenon joints and that kind of thing, just mechanical fasteners. He even talked about how to cut timber on your property, how you can saw it into large timbers for construction, or even saw it into lumber for building things. But anyway, I decided that I was going to build this. This is you'll notice here on this building I'll call my workshop, there's a I can get it lined up here. There's a kind of a separation down here, and then this has some different type siding on it. And this was the first thing I actually built by myself. So this is a 12 by 24 structure. Very simple, just simple flat shed roof, nothing to it. You can see here, cut the timber myself, end up buying some 4 by 8 sheet plywood and that kind of thing for the floor. But this became what I'd read about, called a TS, a temporary shelter. And I mentioned that when I bought the land, there was a 14 by 54 single wide mobile home on it, which was in pretty decent shape, actually. Just needed a little updating, remodeling. But it was right here where this front half of my workshop is. So I built the 12 by 24 and did not physically attach it to the trailer, just kind of, build it adjacent and then build a small deck so that I could walk out of the 12 by 24 straight into the trailer. And that gave me plenty of room to live while I was building my main structure, my main house. So then when I was finished with the house, again, it's really weird how things just kind of open up for you. But a friend of mine who actually lives on my road, known him since high school, but I had the trailer, and he just happened to stop by and asked if I'd be interested in selling the trailer. And I wasn't really quite ready to move into my house. It wasn't finished, but he needed a trailer. He needed a place to live. So he made me a cash offer. And I think within 2 weeks, the trailer was gone. So again, like, man, it's my theory. If you if you have a direction that you want your life to go and you're making effort to push it forward, to make progress, well, then it seems like life just kind of opens up and presents opportunities. And it did for me there. So I ended up, if I back up and do the math, so I paid $21,000 on a 3-year land contract. So by this time it's paid off. So the land is mine, the trailer is mine. The structure back there that I built was already paid for, mine. So sold the trailer. So 21,000 minus 6,500 left me with a total investment of $14,500. And I've got this, the small temporary shelter still. So after I sold the trailer, still needed to finish up the house, but it was in a finished enough state that I could move into it. So moved into it, and well, that was, by that time I believe it was 2007, going into 2008. I'm moving in over here, and trailer's gone. So over time I built the point to it, built the front half of that, and that became my workshop. An investment I did make when I first started, well, I'd read the books that I'll show you by Rob Roy, read the book Ralph Edwards, had a lot of motivation, and I was cutting timbers with just a chainsaw and a little attachment that goes on the chainsaw that allows you to cut timbers. Very cheap, budget oriented, but also very, very slow. So it was taking me a lot of time to cut timber, and I didn't have any big machinery. I just had a small 4-wheeler, so I would cut the tree down, cut it into logs, drag it off the hill with my 4-wheeler, and then take the log and my chainsaw and cut it into a 4x4, a 6x6, an 8x8, whatever I needed. Then eventually I bought this, which is a Hudson Oscar 18 sawmill. If people think sawmill, you think of a big operation, but this is just a simple personal band mill. And you can see I've got a log here that's kind of ready to be cut, actually past due to be cut. But I bought that for a little less than $3,000. I think it was in 2006. And man, that thing has paid for itself so many times over, because so many times if I need lumber or wood or something, I don't have to go to the store. I just, cut it myself. I've also got a lot of work done on my property, a lot of excavating, bulldozing, had some gravel brought in, that kind of thing. And I would simply trade work. So I would, in one case, a guy that befriended, he had his own excavation business, and he was also remodeling a cabin, and he needed siding for it. So I made a deal with him. I cut all of his siding, and in return, he brought his excavator out and his dump truck and cleaned up a bunch of my land for me. Completely, we'll say free, but it was just a simple trade from his time and labor for my time and labor. It worked out really well. Again, like especially if you're in your 20s and your 30s, and you're thinking like, how can I possibly break away from this stranglehold that kind of the American lifestyle, the American economy has, requiring people to go to the bank to get loans to buy homes and that kind of thing. Well, there are alternatives. So keep this in mind. I mean, what I did, Absolutely no experience in construction, building. Simply, my biggest asset at the time was I was motivated and disciplined enough to just to put in the time, put in the work. And there were times when it was like, is it ever going to come to fruition? But now, again, 55 years old, looking to retire early on a drastically reduced pension. And this is one thing that's allowing me to do that. The fact that, I haven't had a mortgage and I had a 3-year mortgage in 2001 to 2004. And since then, no bank mortgages, no bank loans. So I've been able to put extra money aside into investment accounts and savings and that kind of thing. So it's allowed me to prepare for early retirement. So it is possible. Again, take a look at everything I talked about. So from 2001 until 2024, had one mortgage for 3 years, decided I didn't want to wrap myself up into a mortgage any longer, paid it off in 3 years, did a land contract for 3 years, got it paid off. And from that point on, so for the last 20 years, have not had a mortgage, no bank loans at all. And it's allowed me to become financially free at age 55, free enough to the point where, I'm not going to live a lavish, expensive jet, world jet setting retirement, but I'm going to be able to, hopefully, live the lifestyle that I want to live. And a big part of that has been living mortgage free. And believe me, if I can do it, then a lot of you out there can do it too, because I had zero construction knowledge. All I had was a healthy dose of motivation and was disciplined enough to stick to the project, right? Stick to working toward the goal I had in mind. If you think, well, it's just not possible for me to build a house like this, because there is a lot of can get in labor intensive for sure. In my next video, I'm going to show you how people in my home area here in Southern Ohio, and after traveling around a little bit to other states, I know it's happening in other locations as well, but there's another way that you can get into a house with similar costs, say $10, $12, $15,000, maybe $20,000. You can have a house to live in, make it cozy, and not be a slave to banks and mortgages. So if you're interested in something like that, tune into my next video. In the meantime, if you don't mind, again, my name's Casey. This is The Real Channel. Consider giving me a like and maybe subscribe. I would like to kind of grow this channel.